There's something no one prepares you to feel the moment your partner stops desiring you. It's not easy to talk about it, especially when everything seems to be working on the outside. The routine continues. The affection is still there, but the touch, and that touch full of intention, of desire, of passion, that one hasn't shown up in a long time. And then you start to wonder, does he still see me as a woman, as a man? Is the problem me? Has it ended? No one teaches us what to do when the other's desire disappears, but ours is still alive. This is one of the most common and most silenced pains in the sexual life of mature couples, because it affects everything: self-esteem, trust, the shared history. We get used to sharing life, bills, habits, but we don't know how to deal when desire hides away. And the cruelest part is that often we suffer in silence. We pretend it doesn't matter. We try not to demand. We swallow the discomfort, but the body feels it. The soul notices, and the absence starts to hurt more than any words could. But here's the first truth no one usually says. Desire changes, and when it fades, it's not necessarily someone's fault. Often it's the body trying to say something. Other times it's the mind too busy, the heart too overwhelmed, or even the couple lost in the middle of routine, pain, and the invisible pressures of aging. The loss of desire is not a sentence, it's a signal. And signals need to be heard, not ignored or judged. Dr. Ruth always said, when sex stops, something is trying to get your attention. And she was right. Desire can fall asleep, but it doesn't vanish for no reason. Understanding what's behind this distance is the first step to rebuilding the bridge. This conversation starts here, with courage, with affection, and with an important reminder. You are not alone. You don't have to face this in silence. The first thing you need to know is that your partner's loss of desire doesn't necessarily mean the end of love. Often, this change is tied to factors that have little to do with the relationship itself. Hormones, stress, insecurities, chronic illnesses, medications, depression. All of these can directly affect sexual desire. But what most distances two bodies is silence. Because when we don't talk, the other can only imagine. And almost always, imagination creates stories of rejection. It's common for the person on the other side, and in this case you, to feel rejected. And that eats you up inside. It erodes your self-esteem. It makes you doubt your beauty, your presence, your worth as someone who can be desired. But take a deep breath. Your partner's lack of desire says much more about them than about you. Of course, the dynamics between you two matter. But before you take the blame, seek understanding. And that's where something few people practice comes in. The true conversation. The one that begins with, I feel distant from you, instead of you don't want me anymore. Because it's not about accusing. It's about getting closer, about saying how you feel without demanding an immediate answer, about creating space for the other to also share what they feel, what they lack, what confuses them. It might be hard at first, but it's in that delicate territory that desire begins to find new paths. If you're feeling this emptiness and still want to rebuild intimacy with courage, this channel is your place. Here we talk about pain, but we also talk about new beginnings. So go ahead and like this video now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because this isn't just about sex, and it's about not feeling invisible. It's about reclaiming your value, your voice, your right to pleasure. Dr. Ruth used to say, it's not a shame to have sexual difficulties. Shame is living unhappy without trying to understand why. And that's exactly what we're doing. Here, opening paths so you can feel desired again. And most importantly, learn to desire yourself with more compassion. The pain of no longer being desired touches everything. But here's something important. Desire can be rekindled, not with pressure, not with guilt, but with presence. The first step often isn't pushing for sex. It's restoring intimacy, relearning how to look at each other, to touch each other, to talk without demands, to come closer without the expectation of performance. Desire isn't born in the bedroom. It starts in the everyday moments, in a compliment, a gentle touch, a simple "I missed you today." In many cases, the loss of passion comes from the buildup of unspoken hurts, the suffocating routine, the lack of real time spent together. The body only responds when it feels safe, valued, free. And this applies to you just as much as it does to your partner. Intimacy needs time and intention. A good beginning might be proposing moments of connection that don't necessarily involve sex. A massage, a shower together, a candlelit dinner, a conversation about fantasies or good memories. Taking the focus off obligation and bringing back the pleasure of presence. It's also important to open up space to talk about physical and emotional changes. Sometimes he might feel embarrassed about erectile dysfunction, or he might be struggling with insecurities he's never shared, or carrying old traumas, accumulated exhaustion, fears he doesn't know how to name. And you are not responsible for solving all of this alone. But you can be an ally, someone who listens without judgment, who asks without invading, who offers presence instead of pressure. Dr. Ruth used to say, "Sex is communication, and silence is intimacy's greatest enemy." And this applies not only to touch, but to everything we're too afraid to say. So instead of thinking, "What's wrong with me?" try asking yourself, "What is this silence between us trying to say?" Desire often hides behind pain. But when pain is welcomed, passion can begin to breathe again. There comes a time when you need to stop asking only, "Why doesn't he desire me?" Start asking, "What am I doing with my own desire?" Because yes, you have the right to keep feeling desire, even if the other person isn't ready to reciprocate right now. And that's not selfishness. That's self-respect. It's understanding that pleasure, passion, and libido, all of it, are part of your vitality. And when you give that up, waiting for the other person to change, you start disappearing inside the relationship. Your sexuality belongs to you before it belongs to the couple. And when it becomes completely dependent on the other, you run the risk of erasing yourself. That's why, even in times of distance, you must continue caring for your body, your sensuality, your passion. Masturbation, for example, isn't a substitute, and it's a reconnection. It's a way of reminding yourself that you still feel, still vibrate, still burn. And when you place yourself in that position of autonomy, the energy shifts, because desire is alive and it feeds on presence. This can also be a chance to rediscover yourself, to change the way you touch yourself, to allow yourself to fantasize, to seek out content that stimulates you, that makes you feel something beyond frustration. Desire, when nurtured, begins to expand, and that affects everything: your mood, your self-esteem, your posture toward life. Sometimes the other person's desire also needs to feel that yours is still there, alive, shining. Dr. Ruth used to say, "Don't wait for your partner to reactivate your sex life. It starts with you." And that is a powerful key, because even if he still doesn't know how to touch you again, you can already start touching yourself, with respect, with love, with presence. And that alone is a step toward healing, not just for the relationship, but for yourself. Desire doesn't always return, and maybe that's one of the hardest truths to accept. Sometimes, no matter how much you talk, suggest, or carefully try to reconnect, the other person simply can't, or doesn't want to, reach that place of body and affection again. And then comes a decision that only you can make. How long? Is it worth waiting? How long is it worth losing yourself in a relationship that no longer touches you, no longer sees you, no longer desires you? This is a moment that requires great delicacy, because love can still exist even without sex. But you have to ask yourself, is that enough for me? Can I truly be happy without feeling desired? Can I accept this new way of being together, or does it make me fade away? There's no right answer, and only what you feel, what your body is telling you every time you lie down in that cold bed, every time you wait for a touch that never comes, every time you suppress your own passion just to keep the peace. This choice doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be made with awareness, with tenderness, with clarity. It could be the beginning of a new type of relationship, one that's more affectionate than erotic, if that makes sense for both of you. Or it could be the starting point for a new path, where you place yourself back at the center of your own life. But whatever direction you choose, let it come from a place of self-love, from dignity. Because no one deserves to live extinguishing their own fire just to avoid bothering someone who has already gone cold. Dr. Ruth used to say, you, have the right to seek an active sex life, and the duty to be honest about what you feel. You can't live your entire life pretending it doesn't matter, pretending touch doesn't matter, pretending passion is a thing of the past. You have the right to want more, the right to desire, the right to be desired, and the right to make choices that honor the part of you that still beats strongly, even if the other has gone silent. If there's one thing life teaches us after 50, after 60, it's that time is far too precious to be wasted in silence. That living with desire is a right, not a luxury. And that loving someone does not mean forgetting yourself. Your body is still here. Your passion is still here. Your need to be seen, touched, loved, all of that is still here. And it no longer deserves to be pushed aside just to maintain appearances or avoid difficult conversations. Yes, it hurts when the other pulls away. It hurts when desire fades and you don't understand why. But what you do with that pain determines what comes next. You can hide from it, or you can transform it into strength, into questioning, into reconnection, into choice. What you cannot, what you must not do is pretend you don't feel. Pretend it's fine to live without passion, without touch, without connection. Because that's not maturity. That's abandonment. And you deserve so much more than that. Dr. Ruth used to say, desire doesn't die with age. It dies from neglect. And maybe it's time to stop neglecting yourself. To stop accepting less than you need. To stop waiting for someone else to rekindle what you can already start reigniting on your own. Because when you put yourself back at the center of your life, everything changes. The way you look at yourself, the way you touch yourself, the way you exist in the world, and yes, the way you love. This channel exists for that, to open conversations no one else had with you. To talk about passion with those who were taught to forget it. To say, with all the clarity you deserve, you can still feel. You can still live a powerful, vibrant sexuality, even if the other person has grown distant. And if you felt something stir inside you reading this, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth, and come back, because silence may have brought you here, but it's not what's going to carry you forward.